Okie dokie. I recently started watching Fire Force purely because the sound design gets me bricked up. And I finally reached the infamous Tamaki scene that everyone seems to talk about. The climactic moment where Shinra saves Tamaki from being sacrificed by Rekka, and then her clothes get burned off. I'm sitting here watching this all play out with two thoughts going through my mind. One, this is a pretty bad moment, an emotional rug pull that leaves you confused, annoyed, and a little bit frustrated. But two, I think we need to pull back to see the bigger problem. Fanservice has a marketing problem. What do I mean by this? Well, there's a few things I want to look at, with most of it coming down to one thing. First impressions. Marketing is all about convincing you, the customer, to be interested in a product or service. If your first impression of something is, ooh, I want more of this, then that usually means it was marketed well. You now want to buy what they're selling. To look at this in respect to characters, I want to bring up two examples. Tamaki, as mentioned before, and Kyouka from Mato Seihei no Slave. Kyouka lives in a world where the concept of gender equality disappeared from the world. Still such a funny line. Which basically just means that only girls have superpowers and have taken their rightful place as girl boss. Both Kyouka and Tamaki are kind of similar in that they have an ability that forces them to provide fan service. Tamaki has the lucky pervert that causes every boy around her to accidentally stumble into compromising situations with her, and Kyouka has eternal chains that can grant immense power to anyone she chooses, allowing them to fight alongside her in exchange for some pampering after a job well done. What I want to look at for these two is the first impressions before they get to their respective fanservice scenes. Our first scene with Kyouka happens when Yuki, our main character, is being chased down by these monsters called Shuki, and Kyouka swoops in to save the day. While trying to protect him, we can already learn a few things about Kyouka. She seems to be a pretty courageous person, making light of a dangerous situation with a small joke and standing in front of Yuki to keep him safe. She's pretty strong in her own right, fighting alongside her enslaved Shuki and even slaughtering numerous foes by herself with her swordswomanship. She's able to make quick decisions in intense situations, able to avoid certain death whenever her Shuki gets taken out, erecting a barrier when they get outnumbered, and turning to Yuki as a potential slave after realizing the Shuki weren't quite cutting it. We also get a quick glimpse into some of her goals, being shunned by others due to the caveat of her power needing a partner to prove useful, wanting to surpass those that look down on her by becoming the Supreme Commander, which is basically the top dog of this world. And then they make out for a bit. Like, quite a lot, actually. It should have been me. So that's pretty much everything we know about Kyouka before she gets down and dirty, and it's a pretty good list. Our first impressions of Kyouka is someone who is strong-willed and powerful, and it makes us want to learn more about her. So, how does Tamaki compare? Well, if we look at her first scene...
Oh! Shinjin Taikai da! Tamaki Kotatsu! Katsuyaku suru zo! Huh? Nani miten da yo teme?
Betsu ni.
She's haughty? Wait, let's give her another chance. Maybe she just needs some time to cook.
今君と話してる暇はないんだ。すまないね。
ちょっとだけでいいんです。てめ
え、うちの大隊長に気安く話しかけてんじゃね
えよ。I guess she also likes her captain? While I am a fan of both shows, when we look at our first impressions with these two characters, Kyouka is pretty much already fleshed out, while Tamaki, it's very clear she only serves one purpose, and that's being the eye candy of the show. Which we could just end the video here, moral of the story, write better characters, but I think we need to pull out a bit more. Let's move away from characters and look at the first impressions of the anime itself. I'm going to be mostly using Crunchyroll to serve as our first impressions because I want to look at this from the eyes of the most casual viewer possible. I don't think every anime fan uses a database site like MyAnimeList, but it's a pretty safe bet that they'll at least use a streaming site to watch them. This is what a viewer will see when they first look at Fire Force. From first impressions, it just looks like your standard action anime. Bunch of cool looking characters crammed into a poster. Maybe you'll figure out that it's going to focus on fire because this one guy is emitting it from their feet. Also, it's called Fire Force. What you are not going to take away from this poster is that there's a decent amount of fan service in the show. Like, even if we focus on Tamaki, the most she has is a bit of cleavage. There's just no way of telling how much ecchi there is unless you do your own research or just watch it for yourself. Now, am I saying this is bad marketing? Well, not really. When you're selling a product, your main goal is to get as many people as possible interested in that product. Obviously, if you make your posters more perverted, add a boob or two to the key visuals, you're going to narrow your audience down to those that enjoy fan service. If you do what Fire Force does and try to appeal to as many people as possible, you allow viewers to actually experience everything your show has to offer before making their judgment. Will people drop off once they realize there is fan service? Of course, but it's better than the viewer never giving your show a chance. I simply want to bring up the observation that because anime is marketed like this, it can lead towards people being frustrated or feeling like they've been tricked, contributing to why certain shows seem to get more complaints compared to others. We can even see this clearly if we take a look at two other anime, My Dress Up Darling and Don't Toy With Me Miss Nagatoro. If you're a part of Annie Twitter, you might remember this tweet, or at least very similar ones, talking about how they like Marin Kitagawa but dislike how she gets used for fan service. Now, we can make all the arguments about how this is an ecchi anime or how Marin is underage, but that's a topic for another day. What I want to look at is the first impressions of My Dress Up Darling. When you look at the poster, all you really see is two girls, one in a gothic Lolita dress and another in a school uniform. If you put two and two together, you'll realize that they're the same girl because this is an anime about cosplay. Also, it's a mirror, so yeah, duh. It might be a little more obvious that this show will be pretty risque compared to the action-focused Fire Force poster, but it's definitely not clear just from these key visuals. Even if we look at the synopsis, all it really talks about is how Gojo wants to become a doll craftsman, he can't fit into class, Marin lives in a completely different world until she shares a secret with him and their lives change forever. Standard romance affair, boy meets girl. Now, comparing this to Nagatoro, another ecchi anime that I would say has similar levels of fan service as My Dress Up Darling, if we look at the posters, I would say they give off similar vibes. Boy looks nervous because of girl. You might be able to suss it out, but it's still not very clear. That is, until we look at the synopsis. A girl in a low grade just made me cry? One day, Senpai visits the library after school and becomes the target of a super sadistic junior. The name of the girl who teases, torments, and tantalizes Senpai is Nagatoro. She's annoying, but adorable. It's painful, but you still want to be by her side. This is a story about an extremely sadistic and temperamental girl, and you'll feel something awaken inside of you. Now, I don't know about you, but that was pretty darn kinky. I think it's very clear what kind of show Nagatoro is. Girl bullies boy masochists around the world rejoice. And it's probably part of the reason why we never get any posts about how we wish we could save Nagatoro from the fan service. First impressions set the expectations that Nagatoro is indeed ecchi. Now you could say Nagatoro and Marin are fundamentally different characters with different appeals, or Marin is more controversial because her anime is more popular, but I don't think we should disregard the fact that the way a lot of anime are marketed can contribute to how they're seen from public perception, and we can even expand this to how fans portray a show to others. Word of mouth is what I would argue is the best form of marketing, because it's free advertisement with no ulterior motives outside of, I like this show and I want to share it with others. However, sometimes that word of mouth can also lead to bad first impressions. Back to Annie Twitter, you might notice a certain show by the name of KonoSuba seems to get caught up in drama every second month or so. The latest reason for the backlash was simply a fan posting a clip that they found funny and out of pocket, which ended up being just Darkness having a boob slapped around by a giant golem. Everyone dunked on the poor guy because it is honestly one of the weaker gags from KonoSuba, with even Brandon Talks retweeting with a better gag during the meltdown. If we look at this through the lens of two people trying to market an anime, both tweets selling the idea that KonoSuba is a funny show, only one of them ends up succeeding because they knew how to put their best foot forward and use a clip that would appeal to a more general audience to set that better first impression. Again, this isn't to condemn people for finding degenerate humor funny. I love them as much as the next person. This is just an observation of how differently you can portray an anime based on what you show. Which makes me think of when fanservice itself is used as a means of marketing. Undead Unluck is a brand new anime from Shonen Jump, and while I absolutely adore it, by the way, same studio as Fire Force, the early chapters do contain some very unsavory fanservice. Like, this is literally the second page of the entire manga. It's a pretty bad first impression. You can argue it makes sense in context of the power system. Fuuko's Unluck causes those who have had physical contact with her to get struck with unlucky disasters. But you could also argue that it could have been written differently so that Andy here doesn't end up looking like a sleazy scumbag whenever he needs to activate her powers. I've often heard mention that the mangaka themselves, Tozuka Yoshifumi, actually regretted including the fanservice in the early chapters. I unfortunately can't find an actual source for this, only this My Anime List post referencing it, so this is purely speculation, but it's very easy to see how the fanservice might be a writer trying to target Shonen Jump's main audience of young teenage boys, or maybe an editor coercing them to include these for more appeal. Marketing via fanservice is the same concept as putting boobs in the thumbnails. Writers not being confident in the strength of their own writing and relying on a crutch to bring in that initial audience. Which Tozuka should be confident in. Fuuko's growth throughout Undead Unluck is probably one of the best I've seen in current Shonen Jump. Now, we can talk as much as we want about good and bad first impressions, but at the end of the day, is there any actual point in improving how fanservice is portrayed? No matter how well you write and implement fanservice, the only thing that matters is your personal preference, right? If you like fanservice, that's great, you can enjoy whatever degeneracy catches your eye. If you don't like fanservice, that's also great. Everyone has standards when it comes to what they enjoy, so enjoy what else catches your eye. It's interesting to think that as a guy, I have a fundamentally different view on fanservice compared to women. I've watched enough anime to the point that I can very easily brush off bad fanservice. And I would be lying if I wasn't guilty of looking at certain characters in a perverted manner. My last video literally contains a joke about a severed head. Women, on the other hand, are usually less tolerant, ready to write off entire shows because they contain fanservice. Which makes sense. They would hate to be in a similar situation, so of course they dislike it when they see it happen to others. Edit, I'm only providing very simple observations in this video, so for those that are interested in this topic, I would recommend these 3 from actual female creators. Go check them out, they're in the description. Now, this isn't meant to generalize either gender. Men can hate fanservice and Sidsnap exists. It's just interesting to see a different perspective on the media I consume. Even with all this, I still think it's better to improve how we implement fanservice in anime. While you might not please everyone, you can definitely do much better than Tamaki from Fire Force or early Fuuko from Undead Unluck. Even allowing for more discussion about fanservice without people falling into the traps of generalizing and gatekeeping might help elevate the level of thought and care put into a boob jiggle or a panty flash. Have I talked way too seriously about fanservice in anime? Maybe, but I think it's important that someone starts the conversation. And thanks for watching. I wanted to take my time and try something more ambitious to celebrate hitting 1,000 subscribers. I had this idea for a video after a conversation I had with Brandon Talks and Daniel. They make great videos, so check them out as well. I'm a pretty big fan of all the series I mentioned in this video, except for Nagatoro, so I'm not trying to call out certain shows. You can probably replace my examples with numerous other anime. I just chose them because of recency bias. Let me know if you agree, disagree, or just want to bring up your own examples in the comments below. If you do enjoy my videos, consider checking out my Patreon, where you can get access to new videos early or behind the scenes content like scripts or alternative thumbnails. I also have a Discord server. I think I would rather more people check that out because having a community and being able to talk to you all feels much more valuable than making this profitable. I'll just get myself a real job to keep myself afloat. If you're still here, I hope you enjoyed. Like and subscribe for more videos, check out my Discord and Patreon in the description below. Please join my Discord, I am so lonely. Thanks again for watching, and I hope you all have a good rest of your day.